All right, Paul. Hello, everyone. All right. And Charlie's here. Welcome to Politics and Prose. I'm Alan Watke, the Director of Events. And we are very excited to have you all here to celebrate Susan Coll today. Yeah. Before we get started, I just want to remind you all to silence your cell phones. When we get to the Q&A, you'll line up right here at this podium or at the pillar. Same place, you'll line up there for the book signing afterwards. And then once it's complete, if you could fold up your chairs and lean them against the shelves, that would be great. All right, so why we are all here, I am so thrilled to have you all here to be celebrating my good friend and coworker, Susan Coll, and her newest gem of a release, the Literati. I really do have to say that if you have had the pleasure to have to know Susan and to have read her books, then you must absolutely know that you just love them. You'll recognize her wit and her humor just weaving in and throughout all of the books. They're amazing. And it has received so many well-deserved, glowing reviews, with the Washington Post calling it a delightful comedy of errors. And Xochitl Gonzalez says, Susan Coll has written a hilarious, raucous, madcap comedy full of intrigue and insight. And our moderator, Lou, summed it up best, I think, saying, I have learned to relish every minute I spend in Susan Coll's comic universes. And the Literati is no exception, featuring a glittering array of characters from cats to clowns, from divas to embezzlers. This satire of nonprofit dysfunction is up to the minute, intricately plotted, and wickedly funny. Above all, it's delicious. Susan is the author of 8 novels, including the already mentioned Bookish People, as well as Real Life and Other Fictions, a USA Today bestseller. Her 3rd novel, Acceptance, was made into a television movie starring the hilarious Joan Cusack. Susan's work has appeared in publications including the New York Times Book Review, the Washington Post, the Washingtonian Magazine, Moment Magazine, NPR.org, and Atlantic.com. She was the president of the Washington Literary Nonprofit, the Penn-Faulkner Foundation, for 5 years. And I have the good fortune to work closely with her on the events team. Susan will be in conversation with Lou Bayard, the critically acclaimed best-selling author of 9 historical fictions, including Jack and Me and The Pale Blue Eye, which was adapted into the global #1 Netflix release starring Christian Bale. His articles, reviews, and recaps have appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, Salon, and the Paris Review. And he is actually leading an online class with Politics and Prose entitled The Surprising Inner Life of Oscar Wilde, and that will take place over 2 days, November 3rd and the 10th, from 6 to 8 p.m. So look for that in our calendar and sign up for the class. Also, we have a surprise visit from the audiobook reader, and her name is Marnie Penning, and she's going to be joining at some point during the reading. She's going to come up and do a reading. So we're excited for all of that, but mostly I'm excited to welcome to Politics and Prose Susan Coll and Lou Bayard.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me about that course, which I kind of need to start planning for, I think, sometime soon. Is there an echo? We're good? We're good. All right. It's so great to see you all here. So great to see all these smiling faces. So I'm going to tell the story. So Susan and I joined the Penn-Faulkner board, a Washington nonprofit literary. At the same day, same time, we sat next to each other in the same windowless conference room in a foggy bottom hotel. And after it was over, we looked out at each other and it's like, what have we just gotten ourselves into? So when I heard that Susan was writing a book, actually not just when all the members of the Penn-Faulkner board heard she was writing a satire of a Washington nonprofit literary group, we just like, holy hell. what is going to happen. So I was really pleased and pleasantly surprised to see. Well, let's see. There is one person here that there's one line there I need to quote. So somebody, this is a cameo appearance. Paul Goldman makes an appearance too. But at one point, the heroine runs into a dashing writer of historical novels and his husband. So I don't care if that's me. I'm claiming it forevermore. I guess the first question I want to ask you, since you know a lot of these people in this world, do people get scared when you start writing about literary nonprofits or bookstores or all the other elements of your world? Do people think, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in this? Do we overrate our own importance? Maybe is what I'm asking you.
Well, first, thank you, Lou. I'm flattered and honored that you're here after that wind up of the sitting next to each other at that scary board meeting. Yes, people do, but I don't think that they ought to. I mean, my track record is such with 8 books now. I'm really not writing about any of these worlds with any malintent or any intention to skewer anybody. That's not what I do, which I think hopefully is clear from what I've written. Like, occasionally something slips through, like the dashing writer of historical fiction, but I don't think you can be too insulted.
No,
by
I'm
that.
not. I'm good. I'm good with that.
And yeah, my husband's behavior at our first in-person event after COVID kind of ranked Cameo as
He's the
well.
Russian. He's the Russian.
I can tell you about that.
Yeah.
This was our first event after COVID at the Willard Hotel, and you were there. And we were getting ready to begin, but it was early, and the caterer came up to me and said, "We have a problem. Somebody's crashed the bar, and they're serving alcohol, and we're not open yet." And I said, that could only be my husband. So, yeah, so he's in there.
Well, that raises the question, is there an ethics when it comes to, okay, I want to quote Anne Lamott. If people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better. So is there an ethics involved in writing about people you know, a world you know? Do you have to kind of disguise? Is there something conscious that happens, or are you just naturally kind of?
Yeah, I do think there's ethics involved. I mean, for me anyway, because again, that's not at all what I'm setting out to do. And I am very careful if it's going to be something negative, I do disguise it enough that I'm not upsetting or insulting anyone, because that's just not who I am. But I have found back when I was writing more about parenting and Bethesda life, I remember one neighbor came up to me and said, I thought I recognized myself in that sort of unflattering description of an overbearing helicopter mom. And she said, but I don't have a Chihuahua or whatever dog. So sometimes it's easy to just change a detail or two.
I assume there's some projection that happens too in these cases. People just see something and put themselves into it, or I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the only book, not to take it off topic, but the only book that I really worried about was Beach Week, because that was a book about parents behaving badly, and that was based very much on a real incident, and many of them involved lawyers who still lived in the area, and some of those details were just too rich. Like, you can't make this stuff up. So, but even then, everybody had a sense of humor, and there was never a particular person being skewered, just a bad situation.
So let's be clear. This is called the organization in here is called the Washington Literary Nonprofit, WLNP, which sounds kind of like a radio station, doesn't it? And I thought that was kind of hilariously generic, but there is a joke behind that.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of that, again, this was during COVID. It was when I was the board president during a very tense period, both politically, and COVID and cancel culture kind of at its height. And something came up at this foundation where we were talking not for the first time about changing the name. And that was around the same time that the Washington football team, that the Commanders were then briefly called the Washington football team. So that just seemed like a funny idea.
Yeah.
To me.
I see at least one Penn Faulkner employee,
Yes.
and at least one board member that I'm seeing right now. How did your own experience as a president? I mean, then we can move on from the whole Romana Clef stuff. How did it inform your view of the literary world, being in the salt mines, as it were, helping to push events forward?
I think I just saw a slightly different aspect of the same world that I see in the bookstore world, which I love. I love both of those worlds, so don't get me wrong that I'm having fun with it. But just the whole literary world in general, I find very amusing and interesting, and I'm skewering myself as well as an author, so. I think it was just a continuation of the bookstore world, which is part of why I actually continued one of the characters that I'd already written about in Bookish People.
I was going to ask you about that. Tell us about Clemi. She is our heroine. She is our,
Yeah.
I call her the Candide of this whole operation, because she wanders into hopeless situations and keeps
Right.
thinking she can fix this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, she was one of the three voices in Bookish People, and I felt like I wasn't quite done with her. She's young. In this book, she's 26 years old. I feel like I can write that age well. I don't know what that says about my own level of maturity, but that voice comes easily to me. But her mother is a big deal literary agent, so she's grown up in this world. Her father's also a famous poet, so she both has this love-hate with the bookish world, but she knows it really well. So when she first showed up at a bookstore, she already understood everything about publishing, so she can't seem to get away from it, even though in this book she's trying to. She's thinking about going to law school to finally earn a living. And
I thought that was hilarious because I too got the LSAT manual at some point in my career. It's like, oh, this is not working. This is not working. I got to become a lawyer.
well,
Which
I went
in
to law
DC,
school, so
Oh, you went to actual law school. So yeah, you did the whole thing. You plunged.
well, part way.
Part way. I love this line about Clemi. Between her English degree and her bookstore job, she knows a little about a lot, but not much about anything. Comment, if you would.
Yeah, no, I feel that way because I work here at the store. I'm part of the events department. And so when I come in and when I run an event and I listen to an author speak, I feel like, oh, I've just learned a lot. But I don't really know that much. I've just listened to, an hour-long event. And the same with books. You can mention any book to me and I know about the book. I can tell you who published it. I can probably tell you roughly the pub date. But I don't really know anything more about that necessarily. So
it sounds good.
It sounds
like
good.
At a cocktail party that
Right.
people will be very impressed by you.
Right.
We talked about this just earlier. There's a precedent for your novel. Another novel that came out 10 years ago, I think we decided, called Nonprofit, a thinly disguised romantic laugh, also about the Penn Faulkner Foundation. So what is it about nonprofits that makes them such a rich mine of comic material? What's going on?
Well, that I haven't thought too deeply about, but I think just on the face of it, it's kind of ripe for comedy if you think about the sort of class divisions, for one thing. Typically, you have a very, very wealthy board. You have staff that is being asked to execute whatever it is they say. It doesn't always make sense. The staff probably knows that this isn't going to work, but they nonetheless have to do whatever they're being asked to do. So just that dynamic, for one thing, but also, a lot. I've exaggerated it a lot in this book because I think No, but I think. All right. Well, I can say, having sat next to Lou, you would say things that were like very profound about how seriously you took your fiduciary duty, and I think, oh, Lou is really, really a star here.
Exactly
So,
right. Yeah, paragon of board governance.
Right. So I think people can truly care. And yet, in this book, because the board is mostly writers, they're all off at their writing retreats with their away messages up on their email. And the Clemi walks right into a crisis, and she can't reach anybody because everybody's out of office. So, and also the nonprofit math, which I refer to.
Yes, nonprofit math. Yes.
I mean, for one thing,
can be goofy, I think is the line.
It can be goofy. And in a literary nonprofit, you have a lot of literary people on the board who can't necessarily even do math. I will confess, part of what I did was run through the budget with our executive director. I really didn't know what was going on. It sounded good. I tried hard to pay attention, but he could have really been telling me anything. So.
The book sort of climaxes, and this isn't a spoiler, but the climactic event is a gala. I think we can both agree that those are terrifying events for everyone involved in planning them. Where's Renee? Is she out there? Yeah. What makes a gala so pregnant for comic treasure?
Well, I'm not sure if the gala itself is what was inspirational, but so much as just the event. I mean, that's what I did in Bookish People. It's all leading up to this one big event. And then in the book I'm working on right now, again, just the amount of energy that goes into planning a single event. Even here, sometimes just we have events here every single day, and if you could see the amount of time often spent just on one single event, because it's a big deal. It's a big deal to the person who's speaking. It's a big deal in the case of the gala, it's the big fundraising event of the year. So, and there's a lot of moving parts to putting that together. It's a huge undertaking to get a caterer and have everything run as smoothly as it appears to run. So just the kind of comic elements of trying to put that together and then add complete dysfunction and checks that are bouncing. And
yes. Yeah. Lots of bouncing checks and lots of clowns. I think you called them a plague of clowns at one point. Yeah. So, and more than one person refers to this whole experience as a circus. The whole idea of putting on this gala with no help at all, and everyone who's supposedly in charge is AWOL. How do you, as ringmaster of the circus, keep control of it all? Because there's so many characters, so many stuff.
Yeah,
so many things happening.
That's a good question, because when I've told this anecdote before, but when I was starting off trying to break through and sell a novel, I had one that I never sold, and as it went around to publishers, one of the rejection letters said something like, "What a pleasure to see a book with too much going on instead of nothing going on." And no matter what I do, I just write myself into complete lunacy plot-wise, and then I have to land all of the planes. And even today on our dog walk, I was trying to figure out how I've set up this whole ridiculous scenario, and now how am I going to make sense of it?
So you don't necessarily know. There's the gradient between the pantser and the plotter, right? So where are you? The pantser is the one who's doing it by the seat of their pants, right? Because they don't actually know how it's going to end up. Where do you fit in that spectrum?
Yeah, I don't plot. I wish I could. I would save myself a lot of
right. I feel the same
trouble.
way. Yeah.
You don't either.
Yeah, no. A little bit.
Yeah,
I know the ending, but the ending changes.
Yeah, I mean, I know the general idea, and I know the ending broadly, but I think if I plotted too closely, I'd lose a lot of the kind of magic that happens as I'm writing. Yeah.
Speak about the magic a little bit. What happens? Do these characters kind of rear up and talk to you and explain to you, no, you've got it wrong, that I should be doing this? What happened?
Yeah, it's not quite that, and it's nothing too kind of woo-woo or spiritual or magical. It's just that I will hit a place and I don't quite know where I'm going, and then something will happen or a thought will occur to me on a dog walk or
I was going to say dog walks are great for
yeah. And it's not something I would have ever been able to. I could have sat there with my pen and paper for a year, and I would never have been able to plot that out because a lot of it's just so fluid with whatever you're doing on a given day and whatever you happen to read or see. It just all kind of feeds its way into the book.
There's one of the characters in here is a Malcolm Gladwell lookalike. I got to know, do you know Malcolm Gladwell? Did you get permission to use his lookalike in your novel?
I did not. However, as I was writing this, well, I can tell you a little bit about where that came from. But as I was writing this, working here, we all of a sudden did we want to host an event with Malcolm Gladwell? And I worked that event. So I was working on his event while I was writing this, and I saw him, and I didn't mention that he had a doppelganger in this.
And how did you respond to that?
No, I did not tell.
Oh, you did not? Oh.
So I'm still waiting. To hear. But funny thing about that, I can't quite remember where that came from, but it must have come from a couple of my kids were in upstate New York. One of them went to college up there, and she kept seeing Malcolm Gladwell everywhere she went. So she'd send me pictures, and she said, he's sitting there, he's wearing I forget the exact wording, but like mute tomato colored yoga ensemble. So it's like, oh, that's going in the book. And then like a month later, my other daughter was just traveling through upstate New York, and she was sitting in a cafe, and she's like, Malcolm Gladwell's here, and she sent me a picture of him. So he just kept popping up. So that's all that happens in this book. Malcolm Gladwell is not in the book, but someone who looks like him.
But his doppelganger is.
Yes.
I think that's a perfect choice because most people could not identify an author to save their lives. I think, Don DeLillo could walk through this store and nobody would know he was there. But we all know what Malcolm Gladwell looks like, right? There's something about that. Yeah. Can we bring up our reader just to kind of situate us in this story?
Yes, thank you, Marnie. This is like such a treat.
I know this doesn't happen at most book events. Your audiobook reader just happens to be there. This is wonderful.
I live in Falls Church, so this is perfect. I got to say, out of the 350 titles I have on Audible, none of them have made my engineer and I crack up the entire time while we were working on it, other than a Literati. It is fantastic. It's fantastic. So the scene I'm going to be reading is actually a kind of what's on the cover. Clemi has found her charge who has escaped her. He is 8 years old and flies first class, and she has found him by the pool. She's been looking for him everywhere. Okay, this is after she found his mother in a compromising situation when she went back to the room to look for him. Okay. And there is Vlad, splayed like a starfish on a lounge chair. He is wearing tiny aviator sunglasses and orange swim trunks that still have the sales tag dangling from the waistband. In his hand is half of a coconut, and between his lips is a straw. He looks relaxed and confident, like an early investor in NVIDIA stock. What the hell? Clemi bursts out.
Back at you,
Vlad replies.
What happened to your face? And why are you wearing my mom's dress? Aren't those her shoes, too?
Clemi has almost forgotten about the makeup. She wonders what level of insulting it would be to Sveta were she to go into the restroom and wipe it off. Your mom gave me a makeover.
You look spectacular,
Vlad says. Really? Clemi blushes. Maybe this look is okay after all. On the other hand, what does it say about her that she's gratified by a compliment from an 8-year-old?
Here, sit here,
Vlad says, pointing to the lounge to his right.
The other chair is taken.
Clemi looks to the right and sees an empty lounge chair, as well as an astonishing full-on view of the Washington Monument. She also sees a young woman in a straw hat and a striped tankini who is reading an Emily Henry novel. Clemi would like to occupy some parallel universe in which she, too, is relaxing by the pool, rather than corralling a recalcitrant child. She would order some fries and an iced tea and ask this woman whether she prefers beach read to funny story.
Someone was lying there, but he got a call and I left abruptly. I'm pretty sure he's coming back, though. He left his drink.
Vlad raises the coconut to demonstrate. You're drinking his drink?
Just sampling. It's pretty good. A little too fruity, but not bad. Would you like one?
Does it have alcohol?
It does, but I'm sure we can get you a virgin if you prefer.
Who is this child? Amenable, conciliatory Vlad is certainly preferable to bossy, bratty Vlad, but this is not okay. Let's get you a Coke, Clemi says, removing the coconut from his grip. We can also order you some dinner, or better yet, let's get you dressed. I brought your clothes, and go inside to the restaurant.
But I thought we were going to have dinner at the dinner.
Well, that's what I told your mom, but she wants you to eat first. Besides, I don't especially want to sit by the pool. It's hot out here, and as you just noted, I'm already dressed for tonight.
Sure, Clemi, in a little while. But first I want to see if this guy comes back.
Which guy?
The guy I just told you about. The gentleman who is or was sitting here drinking his drink, which you ought to put back over there.
Vlad points to the small table between the lounge chairs.
He told me he lives in Texas and is here to meet his grandson for the first time.
Oh, how nice, Clemi says, setting down the coconut drink. Like she gives a hoot about the gentleman who has been sitting here, who is visiting from Texas, and is here to meet his grandson for the first time. Listen, seriously, I need to get back to the ballroom and check in with the caterer again. I still got a lot to sort through. I was hoping you might change into your regular clothes. I've got them right here, she says, holding the tote bag, which sports the name of Sveta's publisher.
Okay, Clemi, chill for a minute. Let's just see if he comes back.
Why do you care?
I don't think he was really here to see his grandson. Although perhaps he is.
Okay, again, who cares?
Is there a specific term for when someone is undercover, but part of the cover is true?
What even are you talking about?
You know, like when a spy's claimed background actually mirrors his real background, so it's a little easier for him to stick to his bona fides.
I see. I forgot you are deep into a Le Carré phase. But you are asking the wrong person, not my area of expertise.
And you know this how?
I saw the books in your suitcase when I was getting your clothes.
Ah, so you're spying too.
Seriously, enough, Vlad. I've got a lot on my mind. I can't deal with this right now.
Well, anyway, I'm getting off topic because I don't think he's a spy. What I really think is that he's FBI.
FBI? Why do you even think that? Plus, why would an FBI agent be here at the pool? Now, Clemi scans the area, looking for the man who is possibly FBI. She does not see anyone who might pass as either FBI or a grandfather from Texas, but she sees a small girl in a purple bikini with her thumb in her mouth, a pasty-looking man in a Dodgers baseball cap and polka-dot trunks, and a woman in a colorful sarong who is shouting something to 3 young children who are about to jump in the pool, each one clutching a different colored styrofoam noodle. Maybe all of them are FBI. Clemi knows it's ridiculous, but she has a highly developed sense of guilt. She thinks about the bounced check. Is that an FBI matter, she wonders? Surely the FBI has more pressing concerns given all the arms dealers and cyber scams and drug problems, the art forgeries, catfishing, pig butchering, and corrupt politicians. What would they care about one little tiny bad check issued by a flailing nonprofit to a snooty society caterer?
Well, for one thing, he was lying by the pool wearing a suit. A kind of cheap suit is that.
Clemi is tempted to ask him how he knows a cheap suit from a not cheap suit, but then she remembers this is a kid who flies first class. Look, I don't know.
Look, I don't know what he's doing here. I'm just extrapolating from what I heard him say when he got the call, before he walked away.
Extrapolating? That's quite the word. I think in this case you might be over-extrapolating, however. Why do you think he's FBI?
He sounded kind of agitated. He was being all friendly and nice to me, and then once the call came in, he started using the F word. He said some other things I'm not supposed to say. Do you want to listen?
Listen?
I recorded it. I mean, the chicken recorded it.
The chicken? Oh, right. El Diablo Pollo. Now she notices the chicken's plush red beak poking out from beneath Vlad's towel. She wonders if this is even legal, to record a stranger speaking on his phone, minding his own business, sipping from a coconut poolside. Never mind a stranger who is possibly an FBI agent. Then again, what level of naive might it be to expect any privacy in this world? I do not want to listen. Plus, you shouldn't be recording people without their consent. Look, Vlad, it's 5:15. I'm not kidding around. I need to get back to the ballroom to help with the setup. And that means you need to change. She holds up the bag again. I have your clothes right here.
Do you have everything?
I'm pretty sure I do.
Shirt, trousers, tie?
Check. And I've got your socks and dress shoes.
I'm not going to wear those, just for the record. Do you have my underwear?
It's possible I do not.
Good going, Clemi.
Apologies. Maybe you can make do? Ignoring her, Vlad presses whatever one presses to make the chicken speak, and the voice of the grandfather from Texas issues from the speaker located beneath the chicken's tail feathers.
His assets were frozen by the Brits. He was getting desperate. His property taxes were overdue. He had tuition bills to pay.
Then there is a long pause.
I know his kids are grown, but he had a mistress and a whole other set of kids. 3 more, all in posh schools. His wife didn't know. It was fucking extortion.
Another long pause.
Herring, I think.
Pause.
Herring, like the fish. Listen, I'm at the pool. I have to call you back from a secure line.
Clemi feels a jolt of anxiety. Did he just say herring?
Yes, herring,
Vlad says.
It's a fish.
A waiter whom Clemi had not previously noticed is suddenly standing at the foot of her lounge chair. Indeed, herring is a forage fish, mostly belonging to the family of Clopidae, he says.
Oh, sure, Vlad says. I've had herring. It's good on crackers with a bit of horseradish on top.
Herring? Clemi repeats, astonished. Herring as in the bank password? Oh. Herring as in the financial advisor? Apologies, but we do not have herring, the waiter says. At least not poolside, as far as I'm aware. I'm pretty new, though, and they do change up the menu from time to time, so I can check if you'd like. No, that's okay, but thank you, Clemi says.
Are you sure?
Vlad says.
I mean, now that you mention it, herring sounds pretty good. And it's not a problem, you know. You can just charge it to the room. The people giving my mom the award will pay.
No, really. Thank you, Clemi says again to the waiter. We don't need anything right now. The waiter leaves, and then Clemi, despite her better instincts, asks Vlad to play the recording again.
Absolutely,
Vlad says, enunciating each syllable with what sounds like glee. He depresses the button on the chicken, but nothing happens. He tries again.
I think it might be out of juice,
he says.
I need to plug it in somewhere.
Well, that's another good reason to go inside. We can go into the locker room and charge it up while you get dressed. I'm sure they have an outlet.
We need to go back to the room, Clemi. Obviously, I can't get dressed without my underwear.
Clemi runs a variety of possible scenarios through her mind about how to best procure Vlad's underwear, but he is already belly flopping into the pool, splashing her in his wake, and she is beginning to give in to the fact that he is the one in charge.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you're now seeing why authors don't read their own books.
Yes.
Yeah. We depend
Yeah.
on actors to do this kind of stuff for us. Yes,
Yeah,
for sure.
it's such a relief to not read myself even here. So thank
The
you.
post reviewer cited Vlad as the character that stole every scene. I totally agree. He's a delightful creation. Was he fun? I feel like he was fun to write.
Yeah, as soon as he came into the book, it just felt like a new energy.
Yeah. He's like the id, I think, in the whole story. But he has his own little arc, doesn't he? As he goes along, there's a
Yeah.
cat involved and
Yeah.
all sorts of fun stuff. So a couple questions, but I'm going to encourage people to come at Susan, I should say, with your own questions, and you can wander over to the microphone at your leisure. But one is, we talked about this earlier. I've always considered myself the accidental historical novelist because I didn't intend to be that. It just happened without even my volition at some level. So do you feel that same way? Are you the accidental comic novelist?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I from the start when I started writing, I thought I was writing historical fiction,
Yeah, I
actually.
remember, yeah.
And it was a pretty tragic story about the suicide of Karl Marx's youngest daughter. And every publisher who looked at it, every editor said, well, this is really funny. Like, well, it's really not supposed to be very funny. So I rewrote that per their suggestions into more of a comic novel. And I really resisted that with almost every book because I wanted to be writing gorgeous literary fiction. I didn't want to be writing comic novels. But then the last few books, I've finally just accepted that is what I do. And I've tried to kind of lean into that. And things have gotten much easier to write since I stopped fighting that.
So it's as much providential as accidental? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, although I think, yeah.
What are the trade-offs? Are there things that you want to write that are not on brand, to use a hated term?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've got a memoir that kind of used a completely different side of my brain, and it's a very different voice. And I'll go back and fool around with that a little more at some point, maybe try to bring it out into the world. And but my attempts at writing said gorgeous literary fiction just fall flat. I mean, this is my voice, and I might as well just run with it.
It's tough though, isn't it? It's like I have more in this. I have more colors in my.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to be writing?
Oh, we'll talk about it. A few years ago, I was on a panel at the Library of Congress with a couple of other writers, authors, and the MC asked us, "Well, how do you define DC literary culture?" And one of the panelists spoke up. She's not here, but I will not name her either. She said, "There is none." I was like, I really bridled at that. It's like, well, what are you talking about? I know we're not Brooklyn, but for God's sake. But in that moment, I failed to come up with a really good definition of what that is either. And I'm wondering if there's a chunk of it right here tonight. But how would you define DC in literary terms, or is that even possible?
Well, I mean, is that something one needs to do? How do you even define it in Brooklyn? Well, I can think of some words, but I think this is this room is full of writers. Everybody I see in here is a writer. And I think it's a very rich, diverse in many different meanings of the word, and very, very supportive community. To me, that's the hallmark of it, is the support. I mean, everybody, I don't feel that there's any of the kind of cattiness or competitiveness here that I think you might find in someplace like New York. I don't know, because I've never really been part of that.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's the advantage of being a DC writer, is we can support each other. We don't have to compete with each other. Is that the same feeling you have?
Yeah, and I mean, there's also such a mix of there's no certain genre or particular voice, because you've also in DC got a lot of nonfiction writers that I also see in this room. So it's not all fiction writers here, and everybody's kind of very warm and supportive of one another. So.
Nice. Well, that's a very happy note to end on. So I'm just encouraging people to come ask questions. We have about 12 minutes left. Oh, go.
I'll lead off. Susan, congrats.
Thank
Another
you.
great,
Thank
funny
you.
novel.
Thank you,
Two
Harsha.
questions. You've given us a spotlight into a microcosm. Do you think the literary community is any different than the fashion community or any of these other groups that celebrate themselves? And question number two, and I think, Richard, this is picking up on your question. Nonprofits are ripe for this because we're all volunteers. We come here with very different ambitions about why we were on that nonprofit board. We're all trying to raise the valuable buck to keep our activities going. So talk about a little about that dynamic tension about do-gooders trying to make something last. And this microcosm world is oftentimes we seem to be talking in an echo chamber to ourselves. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're absolutely right. And there have, in fact, been comedies and movies made about the microcosm of fashion, the fashion world, publishing world, more, in a more precisely focused way than I'm thinking of younger. But yeah, you can take any industry or aspect of the arts, and I'm sure you can do the same thing with them. It just happens to be the world that I know. But also it's kind of the gift that keeps on giving, because there's so many different aspects of it I could imagine spinning off. So, and yeah, yes to the nonprofit piece of things. I think board members are largely very well intentioned. It's a lot of work to be on a board. Now that I'm no longer on this board, I can't even believe how much time I spent in meetings.
You spent an insane amount of time.
Yeah, it was a lot. So, people are giving a lot of their time and a lot of their money, and they're doing it because they believe in a cause. So I'm not at all cynical about that aspect of things. It's more just when things go wrong, and the things that go wrong in this book, for the record, did not go wrong at this particular nonprofit. It's just my imagination seeing what, other than the person crashing the bar, but just seeing the kinds of things that could go wrong was the fodder for this book.
I think the whole, please, the old model of nonprofits is you invite your friends. Let's make a nonprofit together. Let's make it happen. And nobody has any knowledge of governance or finance or anything.
Right.
But
we
what could go wrong?
Yeah, right. I mean, what could go wrong? We couldn't even get anyone to be on the finance committee. So that's what could go wrong. But yes, Valerie.
So I have a couple questions that are sort of all interrelated. You've written 8 books. So I'm wondering, which one was the easiest to write? Did any of them just flow? Did any of them come together fast? Did any of them not? Which was the one that didn't? And do you have a favorite? Is there one that just stays with you?
Well, thank you for that. This was the easiest one to write. I think I wrote 150 pages of this book without looking up, without showing it to anybody. It just was very easy to write this. I'm not sure why. I think well, part of it I think is because I already knew the character of Clemi, so I didn't spend a lot of time trying to think through her backstory, and that made it a lot easier to write. The hardest, it's hard to say, because so much of that starts to get tangled up with publishing and what you're hearing from agents and editors, and the just difficulty of getting anybody to read it, and long stretches of time pass where you're then rethinking the whole book. So I'm not sure. I guess my book, The Stager, might have been the hardest, just because it got caught up in one of those cycles where it sat on an editor's desk for a year or so. I'm going to read it this weekend, and and then you just get these vague notes back, and I might be overstating that, but that one felt a little more of a struggle. I just didn't see the structure as easily as I saw this book. So.
Oh, do you have a favorite?
I don't know.
It's like your kids. You can't say.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I do, but right now I'd say this one, just because it was easy to write, and it just seems to have easily launched into the world. So for the moment, this one.
I guess this is a little off topic. I guess even you could say a sort of Washington question. Do you think, or would you think, that it would be getting harder or easier to write political satire, political humor?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think it would be harder to be writing political satire right now. I think, I don't need to tell you how divided things are. And I felt, even with my book bookish people, which was not political, but it was a little bit. I mean, it started off with Charlottesville. And I try not to look too closely at reader reviews because they can be scary and depressing.
No. Yeah, no.
But I definitely could tell that there was some of the people who didn't like the politics of the book, even though it was not a overtly political book. But I think it's long being, the last 10 years or so been the case that you're sort of taking a big chance if you're trying to write political satire right now, because you're just gonna alienate a lot of readers. Yeah. And also, I think people don't really want to be reading that, more to the point. I think if people are reading fiction, they're trying to get away from that right now. If they want to read about that, they'll read nonfiction. So, yeah. But thank you. That's a good question. Any other questions?
Anybody else? We can keep talking. I've noticed, though, that I feel like your work isn't, bookish people aside, I feel like you kind of keep politics out of you, which actually is a blessing at some level, right? Just to not have to live in that world.
Yeah, I mean, right now especially, it's sort of a pleasure to be able to spend a few hours a day just immersed in this kind of other world. And yeah, even the word satire, when I started off writing, I was warned, like, do not even use the word satire. People don't like that word. That sort of sounds like it's going to have more of an edge or a sting to it rather than just straight up comedy. So.
I'm remembering the line from George S. Kaufman, the great playwright of the day. Satire is what closes on Saturday night.
Oh, wow, I didn't even know that line, but yes, right.
So we're writers of a certain age, you and I. We're still at the end. We've been through multiple publishers between us. How many of the big five have you?
Three.
Three
Three
for
of
me
the five.
too. Yeah, three of the big five.
Except they keep consolidating.
I know.
We could have said
they'll
like
catch up
3
to
of the
us.
big 8, but no, it's 5. Yeah.
It's a tough business.
It is.
What keeps you going?
The writing. I love the writing. I love sort of putting a story together from very little. I kind of, again, I don't want to sound super woo-woo about it, but there's just something very colorful about it. At one point with The Stager, so now I can say with more certainty that was the book I struggled with the most, I said, all right, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not writing anymore. I'm going to paint. So I started taking painting classes. I went to Glen Echo. I painted some awful pears, which I have around somewhere. And I thought, well, the problem is I can't draw, so I need to learn to draw before I learn to paint. So then I took private lessons, and I really couldn't do that either. And the instructor finally said, I went and read one of your books, and I'm too embarrassed to tell you the painter that I wanted to try to paint like, but she said, your words on the page are what you're trying to paint. And that actually sent me back to that book in a way that I could then see the scene. It's a very visual thing for me. So I love that part of it. And when I teach my classes, I always tell my students, you're not going to believe me, but this is the pleasurable part of it. I don't love publishing. I don't love the whole angst of a moment like this when you're waiting for reviews and sales and the pressure of just getting out there. I don't like that part, but I do love the writing part.
Can you talk about Opus Next?
Yeah, I am working on yet one more literary world bookstore-ish book. And in my mind, it's a trilogy of kind of literary Washington. And after that, I think I'll move on, but I'm not sure. Like I said, it's like every day there's something wacky that happens that I think, oh, that could be a whole novel.
Well, that was kind of a lead into my thought, which was, how did you were writing these sort of literary world books, and then you switch gears with strange fiction. I'm blanking on
the real life
and other fiction. How did you do that gear shift so quickly and then come back into this world?
Yeah, that's a good question. My last book, Real Life and Other Fictions, it wasn't a huge departure because it still at the center had a writing instructor as the protagonist, but it was not set in a bookstore or literary nonprofit, and it wasn't really about any of that. That story, which is about the legend of the Mothman in West Virginia, had been rattling around in my head for a long time, maybe 12 years or so. And I had started to write that novel a long time ago, and it didn't go anywhere. And then I had a book. I had to turn a book in. It was a 2-book contract, for better or worse. It's like that had always been my dream. Oh my God, they want 2 books, and then
And then, yeah,
you're
then the reality is
what
like, oh,
is this
no.
book gonna be? So, so I went back to that and went back to West Virginia and kind of explored that story. So that's where that came from. Hello.
Hi, congratulations.
Thank you, Eric.
You're a very funny writer and person, but do you feel that humor isn't taken seriously enough? By that I mean you look at the Pulitzers, the National Book Award, or even the Academy Award, and it almost always goes to something serious and often dark. But of course you have serious points in your book. So do you feel that the genre of humorous fiction or nonfiction is not given its due and hasn't been maybe since Mark Twain?
Yeah, well, yes, I do. I don't walk around thinking about that. I don't have a chip on my shoulder about it like I should have won the National Book Award. But I do know what you're saying. And in fact, I remember we have a friend who is a big reader, and she's always pulling up her lists of what she's reading and asking me for recommendations. And I remember when Les won the Pulitzer.
I was going to say less, Andrew Sean
I
Greer.
was so excited to see a comic novel win the Pulitzer, and it's also a very good book, and I recommended it to her, and she looked at it and said, "Oh no, I don't read comedy." And I was really shocked by that because
She was a friend?
well, she's someone in this world, a friend, and so and yet. That's what people want. I mean, to as a distraction on Netflix and in the bookstore. So yeah.
Right. And there's almost always a serious point underneath the humor.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Good question.
Thank you. Please join me in thanking Susan Coll.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you.